Today's show is brought to you in part by our sponsor, your local Metro Detroit Best Choice Roofing. In my mind, there's one choice for roofing around here, and I'd go with your best choice. Whether it's time to replace your roof or repair it, Best Choice Roofing provides top-notch roofing services tailored to meet the unique needs of Detroit homes and businesses. They serve the region and inside the city of Detroit, too. Find out more at bestchoiceroofing.com/Detroit. That's bestchoiceroofing.com/Detroit. Or call 313-474-7031. That's 313-474-7031. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Daily Detroit. It is Friday, August 9th, 2024. We're coming to you from our studio in beautiful Tech Town in Midtown Detroit, Michigan. I am Jer and joining me across the table is none other than Mr. Friday, Devon O'Reilly. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Jer. Great to be here. Fresh off a little trip outside of the state, so it's good to be back.
Did your plane end up running into Harris traffic?
No, I was worried that might happen, but
you came in the same day.
I basically landed right as the rally was taking place, but I think they did it a little bit farther of a hangar off the general area because I didn't really encounter anything, which I was very, very grateful for.
Nice. So obviously, let's start with where we've been.
Yeah, so I was in Providence, Rhode Island. I don't know how many of our listeners have been to Providence, Rhode Island. Have you been?
I have not. I had plans to go to Providence at one point because there's a new USL championship soccer team there.
Nice. Okay.
But the whole state is like it's a tiny state. It's like a million people or something.
Yeah, it's
like the size of Oakland County as far as people.
It's very much, quintessential New England, super old town. They've got buildings from, old in Detroit is 1800s, and Detroit's an old city too, but there's like New England old and, there's Detroit and Midwest old. So like there's buildings from the 1600s, from the 1700s. So, me, love exploring cities, love exploring history. So it was really cool to just wander around. I mean, I blasted through my step goal every day because I would just wander around Providence, check it out. Brown University is there. It's small. It's very walkable. I basically probably walked to either ends of the town in the greater downtown area. I love New England. I've been to Boston many times. I had my honeymoon on the Cape. So I'm very familiar with New England. Love the style. Love the salty air. And
did you get yourself a lobster roll?
Multiple lobster rolls. Narragansett lager. That's the only way to go. I got some clam. What else did I have? Clam cakes and stuffies, which are also kind of like a clam cake stuffed with seafood. So I definitely treated myself to some quintessential New England fare. It was great, very walkable, not necessarily pedestrian-friendly, though. We talk a lot about bike lanes and, pedestrian-friendly cities. It's not pedestrian-friendly. It's just very small because it's compact. So I didn't find it that pedestrian-friendly. I had to always keep my head on a swivel walking around. But one of the things that struck me, it's an interesting city, but, it's got a few skyscrapers, a few buildings over maybe, let's say, 300 feet tall. And the tallest building is an old, historic 1920s, 30s building. I was admiring it because I love historic architecture. It reminded me kind of like of the Daily Planet headquarters. If you think about like Superman, it looked like that. And I noticed there were some boarded up windows and I wondered, okay, what's going on there? Only to look up, this 428 tall building is abandoned and has been for over 10 years since Bank of America left it in 2013. And it just blew me away. Like the tallest building in Rhode Island is abandoned.
What's crazy?
It's just one of those weird things. Like it seems like it's not like a city on the downside, but
I mean that kind of reminds me a little bit of what I saw when I was in Memphis. There's more abandonment in Memphis, but some of their taller buildings, are empty as well.
But you know what, Jared also reminds me of how far we've come, and that's what I'll bring it to. Is like there was a time, not maybe our tallest building was never abandoned, but the Broderick Tower was, the David Whitney building was, the Metropolitan building was. I mean, we had some very tall abandoned buildings, and that seems like ages ago that we allowed that to happen. You feel like nowadays in Detroit, like that ain't happening.
Okay. What is your biggest takeaway bringing you back here?
How good we have it, man. Honestly, I go to other cities, and as much as I enjoy exploring them, I'm always reminded of how good we have it. I mean, the seafood, of course. Look, you're in Rhode Island. Of course, you're going to get extremely fresh seafood. But as an
that's an area you can't compete on, right? Like that's their special talent.
But as an overall dining scene, they ain't us. Like, they don't have the Selden Standards, the Grey Ghosts, the Freyas, the really good restaurants like that. They just don't have that hipness. The cocktail scene, they don't have that. They have a couple breweries, Narragansett Brewing, which is fine.
Isn't Providence a town of like less than 200, right around 200,000 people, something like that?
It's the seat of Rhode Island, and it's one of the larger. Let me put it like this year. I believe I read something. It's like basically the third largest New England town. So obviously Boston being the king. Worcester, Massachusetts, is like the second largest New England.
I never think about Worcester.
And then I think, it's larger than you think. And so Providence is like the third largest New England town. So it still is kind of like a seat of New England. But no, it's much smaller, but still, we have it so good in terms of our dining scene, our downtown, all the action that we have. It was fun to wander around, but I didn't encounter anything, awe-inspiring or wholly special.
All right.
So yeah, that's my takeaway is how good we have it. So how about you, Jer?
Well, for my birthday, my date took me to Kamper's.
Yes. Okay. Good choice.
Yeah, the rooftop bar and bit of restaurant on the Book Tower. Now, I had not been. I had been to Le Supreme. Shout out to listener Dave. I saw him post on Facebook about his anniversary. So congratulations not only on your anniversary, but Le Supreme. But I was up there at the top floor. It's not the top floor. It's the top of their kind of like first tower of the book.
Yeah, like pedestal or...
The pedestal, right? Because the pedestal was built, I want to say, in like 1913, something like that, like the 10s. And then the taller tower was built later. And it was amazing. It was like being in an hour centerfold. Like an hour Detroit, fancy, like everybody there had shoes with no socks and like pink and green, and like the whole vibe was very kind of like high end and luxe. It was the really great drinks. The small plates, I enjoyed them. They were tasty, but they were pricey. So I will say, if you're going there in the future, your price to performance ratio is a little off. You're paying for vibes.
Do you remember what drink you had? Because I was also there recently at Kamper's. Great time. It was very crowded. I got the espresso martini. It was one of the best espresso martinis.
Really? I wish I had done that. I did a good non-alcoholic drink called, I believe it's called the Techno City.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I think my wife got that when we went there, and she liked it.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good. And then I did a gin drink as well. I do not remember what off the top was, but it was a gin with coconut and kind of cucumber vibes.
Did you sit outside or inside?
Inside because it was cloudy, but I got a really great outside pick, and it hung out outside for a little bit. The clouds were very dramatic. There's something about when you're doing photography and video that sunny days are great, but in my mind, the best photos come either at golden hour, kind of like your sunset situation, or when you've got a lot of cloud cover, clouds moving. It adds a lot of interest to the photo.
Now, I guess you went on the middle of the week. Did you have any trouble getting up there? Because I had one complaint about my Kamper's experience, and it was how difficult it was to navigate getting up to Kamper's.
Now, they had a stand downstairs that told you what to do.
Yeah.
So they had a stand, and then they took you up an elevator that was dedicated to campers. It took you straight to 13, and then you hopped off, and then there was somebody there waiting for you to take you up the stairs.
When I went, it was on a Friday, and that stand was like a line of like 20 people, and some people were just walking up looking to get into Campers, and some people had reservations like I did.
This is a place, get reservations. And so, even on a Tuesday, get reservations.
Because they had a bunch of us waiting. I would say by the time our reservation, I think it was at 8 o'clock, I didn't get up to Campers until like 8:15, 8:18, just because it took that long. So that was my only complaint. I'm probably, it was a Friday, Saturday, you're going to be a little busier. So
yeah, this was like butter.
So consider that when doing your Campers. I would probably recommend going during the week.
A lot of these places, if you have the ability, go during the week, because you're going to get a lot better experience. It still may be busy, but it's not going to be packed. It's not going to be slammed. I know that's not possible, especially for folks coming into the city, kind of doing the local tourism thing.
If you can. Just to bring it back to my initial point, though, Jer, I sought out a couple rooftop bars. Places like Rhode Island don't have a Campers. I'm not saying that to disparage them. They're not Detroit, but that's getting my point. Like, they don't have a Campers. Their best is our middle.
So are you aware of how like gaming tiers work? So a lot of people rate things like A, B, C. So gaming tiers are kind of like S tier, which is the excellent top tier, and then A, B, C, D. So you got 5 levels. And S tier is absolutely the top. And then, you go all the way down to D, which is not good. I really think that Detroit's really moved up the ranks in the last 10 years as far as entertainment and everything. We're still not S tier. Sorry to rain on anyone's parade, but like, having been to New York, Toronto, world-class cities, Paris, like that's the S tier.
Yeah.
But I think Detroit's really moved up, because I remember a Detroit 15 years ago that would feel a lot more like Providence seems to have felt to you.
Yeah, no, totally. I could totally get that. Wandering around Detroit in 2013, yeah, it wouldn't have been that much more impressive. I think you're onto something. And I also would say, yeah, the cultural capital of being from Detroit is only rivaled and surpassed by places like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Boston, saying like, I'm from there. But being from Detroit and encountering people, like people are interested to hear that in a way that you wouldn't if you were like, oh, I'm from Phoenix. I'm from, Boulder, Colorado. I'm from Denver. Be like, okay, cool, whatever. I'm from Detroit. Interesting. I hear a lot of things about it. Tell me more about it. So like there's this natural cultural capital that you have in Detroit that only is surpassed by the big cities.
I need to talk to you, Devon.
Okay, well, let's keep going.
The people are mad at you.
Oh no. Well, we thought we might make some enemies with the Olympics episode.
Sir, people have literally called you Devon Downer as of late.
Come on. What did I just get done saying? How great Detroit is, right? Come on, people.
You came out very hard against the Olympics, and you were saying that the 75 cap proposal may not happen.
Right.
And a number of listeners are mad because they feel like you are not being positive, that we could do something with the Olympics in 3 to 4 years or 10 years. Different people had different things. With the cap, you don't have enough vision. Some longer listeners feel like before, when you were doing a lot of like Devon around town stuff, you were very positive, and now they feel like you're kind of negative. And then a lot of other commenters say they come to Daily Detroit for the sunshine, and you have not been giving them sunshine, Devon O'Reilly. What say you, Devon Downer?
Okay. Well, I mean, as I just started talking about how great Detroit is, I am still, if anyone listens to this, which they do because they're talking about it, I feel I'm very positive and bullish on new businesses, small businesses. I'm always extolling the virtues and the great little places that you can find, new restaurants. I mean, Jer, I don't think I've given a bad review to a restaurant or a new place that we've talked about in a long time.
Well, your general vibe is to only talk about it if it's good.
Well, yeah, but I also don't encounter many that are bad, frankly. So I'm very positive about that. The developments we've had. I mean, God, we are in the middle of the show me phase of Detroit with the Book Tower being renovated and the Hudson site getting capped off and the train station opening. And I think I've talked with effusive praise about all of those projects. I've been a little more negative on the Olympia stuff, and I think I'm justified in that. But also, I think we need to kind of level set. And you and I have been doing this for 8 years, but I've really been doing this for 10 years now, really. And it's since my job took me specifically to Detroit and really focusing on the city. And in 10 years, we've talked about a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff has been announced. I mean, you could go back and just myriad of things. You could fill boxes with all the announcements and grand plans that were made. And a lot of that didn't happen, but a lot of it did. And so when I'm influenced by the fact that I've been a part of this now for 10 years, and I've seen a lot of success, and I've seen a lot of failure, and a lot of in between. And not everything that gets announced is going to happen. Not every grand vision is going to come to fruition. So I guess, if anything, I'm settling into being a dose of reality sometimes for listeners who might have their head in the clouds. I'm sorry if I'm going to pull you back down to reality, but it's not always sunshine, and not all the things are going to happen. Some things aren't.
But also, like in your life and the connections you've made and things you've done, you have a really good beat on what's actually happening, not what like the internet wants to happen. Now you come here to Detroit, and a lot of people who move to Detroit are optimists, and I'm an optimist too.
And so am I. I am an optimist.
But there's a difference between being an optimist and like actually being like, what's actually going to happen in this community? What can you actually talk to people about? And there's a huge difference because, and Norris and I talked about this on a previous episode, like a lot of Detroit is nowhere near as online as a lot of commenters are. There's like a phase difference there between like what you hope happens and then what can actually happen, or the math on the ground. Like I've learned so much in the last 10 years about how developments actually work, and realizing that like, oh, the reason why we don't have all the stuff with this Detroit is, look, the Ilitch family is wealthy, but they're not that wealthy. Like if you look at how much money Stephen Ross put into Hudson Yards, like there's this idea of like scale here. And I don't think there's this understanding of like, there's so much more that goes to this stuff. And as I've learned, there's more stuff. I've tempered my expectations, but also gotten more excited about things that I think can actually happen, knowing how things now work.
Exactly. I mean, at some point at the far end of the scale, optimism becomes delusion. I'm never going to stray into that zone because there's no use in it.
So address the Olympics specifically, because that was the biggest one.
Well, the Olympics, I mean, it's just not going to happen. It's just stop it. That is the most real thing I can tell you is we are not making a bid on the Olympics. It is not going to happen. And you just talked about conversations on the ground. It's one of those things where like some people, I'm not going to break it down to geography, but like some people aren't aware of the actual conversations that are on the ground, and they think that, you know, no one is talking about an Olympic bid. Nobody is talking about an Olympic bid.
Like nobody's serious.
No, exactly. That's the point. Not from the state level, no one in state government, no one in local city government, no one in business. Like it's not a thing. So,
one person argued that it helped supercharge Atlanta, and I would disagree. I think those were unrelated things.
Yes, and I will stress again, because I think I alluded to this. The Olympics gets booked out 10 plus years in advance. So we already know where Olympics are in 2026. In 2028, they're in LA. So the US is going to get another Olympics. 2030, they're in the French Alps. 2032 in Brisbane, Australia. And 2034, Salt Lake City, back in the US. You think we're getting another US win in the next 15 years?
So it's not even about Detroit. It's
no.
Looking at it going, the US just isn't going to get another
no.
one.
And apparently Indonesia, Turkey, India, and Chile have all confirmed bids for the 2036 Olympics. I would highly doubt the US is going to get the 36. So at the very minimum, we're looking at 2040. I think I quipped in the thing. Sure, if you want to talk about, you know, the 2050 Olympics or 2054 Olympics, okay, like, yeah, man, we can talk about those. Maybe we can get those in 2054. That'll be cool. We'll hopefully be around. But I mean, come on.
I think it's maturity.
There's too much happening now, Jer. There's too much happening now. I don't need to talk about trying to bid in the Olympics in 30 years. I can talk about the train station, the amazing stuff that's going on there, and the riverfront. There's positive things happening right in front of our eyes. And I don't think it's negative to dismiss the pie in the sky stuff that could happen in 20 years.
All right, a bit of news before we go. The city of Detroit will launch the Connect AV shuttle service, that's autonomous vehicle shuttle service, a free and fully electric pilot program this Tuesday, August 13th. The shuttle will operate on a nearly 11-mile loop from Corktown through downtown Detroit to the East Jefferson Riverfront, with shuttles arriving every 10 to 15 minutes during peak hours. Some notable stops include Michigan Central, Campus Martius, and Rivertown Market. Initially, the shuttles will be manually operated to adjust to operations and verify autonomous features. This is according to press materials. A safety operator will always be present. The service has received, millions of dollars in funding from MDOT to add a fifth shuttle, reduce times, and make the pilot go longer. The project partners include the City of Detroit, Bedrock, Michigan Central, and the State of Michigan's Office of Future Mobility and Electrification. Perrone Robotics will provide the autonomous vehicle technology. This will be free. It will run from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Mondays through Fridays, and you can track it through an app. So Tuesday, AV Shuttle. I have feelings about this because I think it's a good ad, but in context of other things. But what say you, Devon?
Well. A fixed route autonomous shuttle in downtown Detroit. You want to check the previous episodes and how much I've talked about this?
Yeah. You nailed it.
This
if there were a bell, we need a bell.
This is what I said was going to happen, and it's happening. So, and I was positive about it. See? I was positive about it. I said, this is going to happen. You're going to see fixed route autonomous shuttles. That's the reality of what's going to happen, not more light rail or whatever, trains or whatever people wanted that are just not going to happen. This is the future, like it or not. It's easy to implement in the sense that the infrastructure build out is extremely low. They just work on the roads that currently exist. I do think eventually, Jer, as I've said before, we'll transition to maybe dedicated lanes for these vehicles, but it's still not a huge build out. But I like this pilot. I think it's a good start. It helps people get around downtown. Right now, there are, like you said, there are people in the vehicles. I think obviously that's a safety precaution that you have to have right now. Hopefully that changes, and then it's just fully actually autonomous, and then you don't have drivers actually in the vehicle. You don't need the extra manpower, because I know it's an issue with buses is people to drive them.
There are issues right now with Detroit buses because they don't have enough manpower. They don't have enough maintenance people, because 1/3 of Detroit's bus fleet is sitting idle right now because there are so many issues, and it doesn't look like any of it's going to really be addressed until at least least next year or the year after. And as somebody who like occasionally uses the Woodward bus, there has been skip after skip after skip. And I really think the city is hoping that this gap can be made up somehow through AV and through pilots like this, because I could see if this works, it getting used to help, reach out in the different neighborhoods and do things, because your bus gap and your funding gap is so huge. And in fact, the state cut transit funding by 6%. So that's when you're saying AV is the future, there is literal lack of drivers driving the situation.
Yeah. So I think this is the way to go. I hope that it's successful. I'm definitely going to try and check it out.
Next week, my goal is to get on it. Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it together, Jer, and see how it goes. I'm cautiously optimistic for this. I think it could be expanded. And right now it's a very small, obviously, look, don't send me hate mail and say like how small. It's a very small project. It's not like this is getting thousands of people around, but it's a start. And what kind of larger vehicles can you then implement? I know that even in our Slack, there was a comment, which I agreed with. That,
or our Discord.
Member Discord, yes. In our Discord, that I actually did agree with, where someone mentioned it would be nice if the engineering and the tech was homegrown, or at least from a Detroit-based company. I think we'll get there. I think with a lot of the stuff happening in New Lab and around Michigan Central, we saw this with May Mobility, which is a local company. I would like to see eventually where we don't need, I think Perrone is the company. They're not from Detroit, but it'd be cool if we could do this with a Detroit-based engineering tech company.
Well, I'm very interested to see what you all think if you're going to give it a shot. I feel like as a demonstration, it being available on the weekends, at least Saturday would be good, because there's a lot of people who come to the city on the weekends, and that availability would help more people get to see it. And I hope they do expand it to that, because 7 to 7 means it's workaday crowd 100%.
I would like to see it expand to the weekends. I'm also interested in seeing how they are going to market this, because as you know, that becomes really important.
Yes.
People want things that are easy to use and easy to understand. Like, I don't need to be like trying to find where I can pick this up
There
at.
needs to be signage. There needs to be regular schedule. They need to say, this is the 15-minute window. This is the 30-minute window. They do have like a web app for it, but it needs to be, it's got to be right in front
of you. You got to lead people to that. You got to put the QR code for that app all over downtown so people can find it. You really got to make this super easy on people, or it just won't stick.
Yeah, I think that's going to be crucial. It'll be interesting to see how it rolls out. We'd love your feedback on all of this stuff. dailydetroit@gmail.com. Thank you to our members on Patreon who help keep this show going. And of course, our commenters who help keep us honest, even if we may not agree, Devon.
That's true. Healthy Discord is it's fine by me.
With that, I'm Jer Stays.
I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Thank you so much for listening. Leave 5 stars in your favorite podcast app, and we'll talk next week.